does all suffering come out of sin? And it's in John 9. His disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? Jesus answered, it was neither that this man sinned nor his parents. Now, is he saying that the man and his parents didn't sin? Of course not. That's not his point. He's saying, in answer to the question, who sinned with this result of his blindness? They sinned all right, but they didn't sin with the result of his blindness. It was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. And those works of God included Jesus' healing of him, but they might not be limited to that. I mean, did God do a work in the life of the blind man before Jesus healed him? Likely. Did he do a work in the life of the blind man after he healed him? Probably. There's no direct cause and effect. Now, does God sometimes bring judgment upon sin, and is there a direct consequence? Yes, sometimes, but clearly not always. This was not one of those issues. We just have to be extremely careful. I think when the Twin Towers fell and people started talking about statistics of a large number of gays and lesbians who worked in the Twin Towers. I don't know if you ever heard that one. Okay. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm guessing it probably... I won't guess. I don't know whether that's true or not. I just don't think... there are lots of sins in lots of places, and there's a lot of sin of materialism on Wall Street, and Wall Street didn't come down. But, you just don't... Be careful not to draw sweeping conclusions. And there were some... one notable Christian television personality who will remain unnamed, who made a big point out of that one. Charles Spurgeon said something he said many very interesting things. He says, if I did not believe my disease came from the hand of God, I would be in despair. Okay, now, you can look at that and you can say, well, wait a minute. Are you saying that, like, Satan isn't behind disease and it isn't just human sin that causes disease, but that God actually causes them? Now, I don't think he's saying God causes diseases, but in a world where there are diseases that God sovereignly elected, that Spurgeon would benefit from some of the disabilities and diseases he had. I'm an insulin-dependent diabetic. So when you see me, as some of you did, and I'm like doing a little digital thing, and I'm taking a little blood test, and just don't look this direction. I tried to hide it behind the briefcase when I was doing it. But, okay, so insulin-dependent diabetic. I got that late in life for a diabetic. I got it when I was 34 years old. This disease is a gift from the hand of God for me. He has done more in my life to teach me dependence upon Him through this disease. And now, if you said, if you could just like raise your hand and vote and say, God, would you be willing to take away this disease? Would you want to take it away? Well, of course. Of course. It's not always easy. It has detrimental effects on my life, and it complicates things and all that. But I'm just, wow, God has used it. Okay, as I look back on my life, and if somebody said, what are the two greatest ways God has worked His will in you? I would say one was getting this disease, and the second was having to give up a pastoral ministry in a lawsuit for $8.2 million from an abortion clinic requiring that I live on minimum wage for 20 years. And then you would probably say, well, if those are like two of the best things, you've lived a really miserable life. But on the contrary, what he brought out of both of those has just been how many things I have to be grateful for as a result. How many lives I could not have touched. Except through the ways he did that. And this is what Spurgeon was saying. He wasn't minimizing the reality. His disease, he had several diseases, but gout, he had a horrible gout. And he was in pain almost all the time. His wife was an invalid. But God taught him a humility. There's a humility. My body was always strong. My mind was relatively strong. And then I became an insulin-dependent diabetic, and then my body wasn't strong. And you ever been around somebody that has a low blood sugar? Well, it's like Alzheimer's that you can have for 20 minutes when it gets really low, but then you drink a glass of orange juice, and in another 20 minutes your Alzheimer's is gone. But you remember the foolish things you said and the foolish things you did. Humbling, very humbling, which is why you'll be glad that I checked my blood sugar in this class. And by God's grace, I won't get low. I only had a low blood sugar one time ever in all these years while I was speaking. Because what I do is I always make sure my blood sugar is high. And that's the only time I want it to be high, is because if it goes down while I'm speaking and I don't know it, I could get in trouble. But God brings great, I'm not even going to talk about that one, but think of Romans 8. The suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that will be revealed in us. The creation waits in eager expectation for the sons of God to be revealed. The creation was subjected to frustrations under the curse, in hope that the creation itself would be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God. We know the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth. Romans 8 is talking about suffering. Not only so, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption as sons, God's children, the redemption of our bodies. We await the resurrection, and we're groaning in this world. And then you look at that and you say, what does all that lead to? Well, all that in Romans 8 to this point leads to verse 32, he who did not spare his only son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not through him freely give us of all things? We are more than conquerors through him who loved us. God works all things together for good. Nothing shall separate us from the love of Christ. Romans 8, the promises spread throughout Romans 8, but which culminate at the end of the chapter, arguably, if it would have to put it on the short list of greatest chapters in the Bible. All the Bible's great, okay? But wow, Romans 8 is incredible. But at the core of it is the suffering of this present life that God is going to overwhelm with an ultimate glory that has not ignored the sufferings of this life. It's not just independent of the sufferings of this life. Like, you've suffered enough now, so you're going to get relief from your suffering. It's like 2 Corinthians 4, 17 and 18, that says that, somebody read in your version, because I want to get every word right, 2 Corinthians 4, verses 17 and 18. Tell me what version it is and then read it.
I'm not there yet, so.
New American Standard. For momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, the things which are not seen are eternal.
Okay, somebody else read, this time just verse 17 in another translation.
What was the first one?
2 Corinthians 4:17, but not in the New American Standard.
For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison.
Okay, another version.
For our present troubles, this New Living, for our present troubles are small and won't last very long. Yet they produce for us glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever.
Okay, so these light and momentary afflictions are preparing for us, or producing in us, an eternal weight of glory. Okay, do you see that it's not just saying these light and momentary afflictions will one day be gone. They will be behind us, and we will never be connected with them again. They are, one translation, achieving in us, producing in us. They are resulting in Christ-likeness and eternal rewards. And what will come out of the suffering is not just ultimate relief from the suffering, but abiding character that made a difference in a fallen world where God used us and used suffering in our life to make us. So sometimes I think we just really, because we hate suffering, understandably, I think what we really should hate is sin. Now, suffering comes from sin, so we kind of throw it all together. And of course I hate the suffering that's the result of the sin and all that. I do hate suffering, but I think whereas sin doesn't have an upside, suffering can be used by God in such a way as to make an abiding difference in our lives and make an incredible impact on other people.